What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another loose graded vintage Star Wars market update, and you are not going to believe the final sales price on that what to buy video item, which was a Uzay Blue Stars Blue Hoth bootleg from Turkey that was graded AFA 85 plus. Pretty sure it was the highest graded example. It was at auction. I know a number of you bid on it, and I wanted to include my stupid face on this thumbnail because the final price was really surprising. So stay tuned for that one. And we've got some UKG items, mainly because I found a bunch that were in buy it now situations that I sent out to Patreon supporters, and most of you guys snapped it up in my buy it now alerts to my Patreon supporters. So thank you for supporting the channel. I tried to send good deals that I think are worth taking a look at to my Patreon supporters, and a number of you did pick up some awesome items. So let's go ahead and dig in. This was a UKG 85 R5D4, and I believe this one was the 1977 date stamp, which is a little harder to find, and it's also the harder to find no COO. So this is a tougher variant to find. I've got one of these graded UKG 80, and it's an older case style. It doesn't look that great in the case, and I was thinking about bidding on this one, and I just got sidetracked, and unfortunately, this one slipped through the cracks, so I just didn't have time to bid on it. There were a number of items that this seller had that we're going to cover a little bit later on that I wanted to talk about in more detail that were also very tempting, but they went too high. So this one did sell in an auction for 110 pounds, which is 140 US dollars. That's a price I would have paid all day long. I got sidetracked. I was watching my Titans lose yet again to Brett Onfet's Houston Texans, and it was a nightmare because I had to put up with him bragging about it. So congrats on your big win, Brett Onfet. The Titans are terrible this year. It's a lost season. It is what it is. But anyway, this 1977 date stamp is a tougher variant to track down, and it was also the harder to find no COO. So congrats whoever got that one. All right, so now we're going to dig into Cashel Retro Trader, who I've bought from in the past, covered him in past videos. He listed for in buy it now situations a bunch of really awesome vintage loose graded UKG items that I sent out to my Patreon supporters, and they were snapping them up left and right on Saturday and Sunday. And this one is the apple-headed Yoda. So as you can see, the head is a bright green apple head with the Pac-Man eyes, and it's got the darker skin for his hands, legs, and body. And this one was a buy it now situation. It sold for 245 pounds, which is 311 US dollars. We documented on the channel a UKG 85% that sold for over double this price. So I felt like that was a good deal for a UKG 80. Some light wear to the hands, hence the 80 grade. But that's a very tough variant to track down, having that mismatched body with the brighter green head. And it's appropriately labeled as such by UKG. Apple-headed Yoda with the brown snake, graded UKG 80%. So congrats on that one. Next up, this was, in my mind, probably the steal of a deal here. This is a very tough variant to track down, and I sent this out to a Patreon supporter. He did get this one. This is the no COO Tusken Raider. Very, very tough variant to track down. I've got a UKG 80 myself, and I paid almost double the sales price. So I thought this one was a little bit underpriced, but it was a great buy by one of my Patreon supporters. 99 pounds, which is 125 US dollars. I think I paid over $200 for mine in an auction as well. So just one of those variants that you just don't see pop up very much. You actually see the Spanish puck more than you find this no COO variant. So very, very cool variant, and great deal on that one, I thought, for one of those figures that just doesn't pop up, because this one only appeared, I think, on Palatoy Cardbacks as well as on the very rare Tri-Logo. There's not many Tri-Logo Sand People mint on cards out there. I just never see it come up for sale. It's one I'd love to have in my collection, but I just never see it come up. And when it does come up, it's like $800 or $900 in high grades. So to get that loose graded variant, that was a good one to track down. Next up is a Luke Farm Boy brown hair, but this is not the more common no COO. This is a Hong Kong, and that's what it's labeled as, the Unitoys brown haired Luke Farm Boy, and it is a GMFGI Hong Kong. 85% as well. New case style, beautiful figure. Just a couple of light issues here and there on the hands, but Really, really tough variant to track down. Now, an AFA 85 is going to set you back $650 or so, at least. And so this was a nice one. This is not the dark brown hair, but this is kind of the lighter brown hair version. And I would actually say that this is just as hard to find as the dark brown hair, maybe slightly less, but not by much. This one sold for 425 pounds, which is 540 US dollars. I sent that one out to my Patreon supporters, and it sold pretty quickly thereafter. Next up was a no COO Princess Leia, and this one was graded UKG 85% and sold for 249 pounds, which is 316 US dollars. And this one looked every bit of a UKG 85 to me. So a couple of light issues on the hand, maybe a couple of scuffs on the cape, but that was really about it. The eyes and the hair and everything were in great shape. Really beautiful variant. And, you know, just the no COO, again, pretty much any no COO I feel like is a lot harder to get in really clean condition versus the Hong Kongs, which appeared on much more numerous cardbacks. So I thought that was a good buy there. Next up was a no COO Rebel Commander. Again, another figure that would only appear on Palatoys or Tri-Logos. And just not a loose graded variant that pops up very much, just maybe because it's such a lower value kind of secondary character. But, you know, almost every loose graded Rebel Commander, the Hoth Rebel Commander that I see pop up, it's always the Hong Kong, which is the most common. So this no COO did sell for 89 pounds, which is 113 US dollars. Here was a beauty that I sent out, and I thought this was a screaming buy. This is the leather cape Spanish PBP Darth Vader. So no COO scar, as it's labeled there, with the textured leather cape. So you can really see that in some of these photos here. Let's see. You can see the texture there on the cape there. So the Spanish Vader came with a smooth cape, the textured cape, and then I think also there is a cape that's smooth on one side and textured on the other. So, you know, several different variants you can track down for that. So there it is, leather cape. 85, 80, 85 were the subscores on that one. So beautiful figure, 225 pounds was the buy it now price, which is 285 US dollars. Again, that's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat. I think I have a leather cape Vader that I bought ungraded for about the same price, if not even just slightly below that. But I think that's a really good deal. It's just one of those variants that's kind of like a well-known variant. Not particularly rare. You do see them pop up fairly regularly, graded by UKG. But it's just one of those kind of cool variants, given that the texture to the cape is a lot different. Next up was the Paleface AT-AT Commander. And I sent this out to my Patreon supporters. And I said, fair warning, I'm giving you guys a few hours to buy this, otherwise I'm going to buy it myself. And it did sell. So thank you for saving me some money to my Patreon supporters. Just light kind of yellowing to the torso there, which is fairly common on this Paleface AT-AT Commander Spanish figure. And you can see there it's labeled PBP Paleface, no COO scar, graded 80%. And I think it got the 80% mainly because of the slight yellowing to the torso. But still, it's a variant that I want for my collection. I gave them fair warning, and it took me up on it. It sold for 109 pounds, which is 138 US dollars. Another good deal was a UKG 80% Taiwan Biker Scout. And again, usually you see these as the UKG graded Hong Kongs. The made in Taiwan, a little tougher to find in clean condition. Every bit of an 80%, and it sold for 75 pounds, which is 95 US dollars. Another great price, I think, for a fairly high grade. This seller he listed a bunch of them, and they were all snapped up pretty quick by my Patreon supporters. Here was another one. This is the no COO Princess Leia Bespin with the turtleneck. And it was graded UKG 85%, and it sold for 159 pounds, which is 202 US dollars. I mean, just the standard Hong Kong loose ungraded will sell for $100 to $110, again, ungraded. And this is the harder to find no COO. There is also another no COO that has a very, very pale face. It's called the Geisha or pale face, ghost face Leia. So this one is not that. I think this is just the standard no COO, but another very desirable variant. And again, it sold for 202 US dollars. We had the metallic variant for the 21B medical droid, graded UKG 85. Now, UKG does not label these as metallic or semi-metallic or dull finish the way AFA and CAS do, but I wish that UKG would do the same. But this is obviously very metallic finish to the body on that one. Some slight bubbling to it. It's just kind of a cool variant. But there is also kind of a dull blue version for this same figure made in Hong Kong. And that one sold for 109 pounds, which is 138 US dollars. This was a very rare one. This one is the Spanish POC Pale Hands Princess Leia graded AFA 80. Very, very rare. This is actually the first time I've ever seen an AFA graded example of the Spanish POC Leia. And I think it's actually the highest graded I've ever seen pop up UKG or AFA graded for this particular variant. So it's a Hong Kong date stamp, but it's a Spanish figure. And so the early Spanish POC figures, they imported the parts from Hong Kong, painted and assembled them in the Spanish POC factory. And you can see how pale the hands are on that figure. And again, it was graded 80%. AFA always labels the Spanish figures as Kenner/PBP, even when it's the Hong Kong Spanish POCs. So I don't know why they do that, but we've talked about that in the past. Very desirable variant, very rare. And it was listed for $1,000, and the best offer accepted was $800. Again, that's a price I'd pay in a heartbeat for a very tough to find variant. Just does not pop up regularly at all. I've seen a few like UKG 70s and 75s. Never seen an AFA graded example pop up on eBay. So good deal on that one. Next up was a CAS 85% Cloud Car palette. And I sent this one out and it sold about a day later. It was listed for 189 US dollars. Best offer accepted. I said, it probably is worth about 160. I forgot to look up what this one sold for, but it did sell. Best offer accepted with $5 shipping for a Hong Kong Cloud Car palette graded CAS 85. All right, here we go. Now, going back to this same seller that had the R5D4, this is the one I really wanted. And I think this is a good lesson that a lot of the later U.S. cardbacks, they use China factories. And this one was a raised bar China Princess Leia Hoth. And they just do not pop up regularly graded. So, and the same goes for the Leia Bespin. And if you happen to have any loose China COOs for some of these ESB characters like Leia Hoth, Leia Bespin, Luke X-Wing is another one that comes with the China COO. They are very desirable. They just do not pop up regularly for sale loose graded. And this one sold for big money. I said if it was going to stay around 200 to 250, I might bid on it. It blew well past that number and it sold for 310 pounds, which is almost 400 US dollars. Now, you think like a standard Hong Kong graded UKG 85% for this same character, it's going to go for probably about half that price, if not even less than half. So it just shows you that the raised bar China COO, especially for some of those Empire Strikes Back characters, are very, very desirable. Next up, the same seller also had a UKG 85% EV99, another very desirable last 17 figure. That one sold at an auction for 319 pounds, which is 404 US dollars. I got 3 different Imperial dignitaries that sold. This one was graded UKG 90% and sold for 155 pounds, which is 197 US dollars. There was a CAS graded 80 with the coin, and that one sold in an auction for 152.50 free shipping. So admittedly a lower grade, but I thought that was a good deal given that it was encased with the coin, and it sold for pretty cheap, 152.50. And then finally was a U85 plus AFA graded example. That one sold for the most money, obviously, given that it was a U85 plus, and it sold for $256 in an auction on 27 bids. Let's dig into some droids figures. First, we've got a Tig From graded CAS 80 with the coin. And this is another one I sent out to my Patreon supporters, and it sat for a little while, and it was awfully tempting because we all know how expensive Tig From is. That one did finally sell for 700 US dollars plus 1560 shipping. And we also had a droid C-3PO that I pointed out in my What to Buy video. This one was an AFA 85 plus, and it sold in an auction. And I said, you can probably expect to pay at least $700 for it, I think is what I said. And that one did sell for $710 on 25 bids. But again, it was a very high grade example. 85 plus does not pop up regularly, and it was at auction from Brian's Toys. Absolute beauty, $710. But I'm saving the best for last, and that one is the Uzay Turkish bootleg made by SB Products. And this one is a very tough to find Blue Stars, 100% complete. And I had several of you reach out to me asking me what it would sell for, and I said I had no idea. All I had was data based on the Facebook bootleg group sales. And a near mint condition figure by itself, without the weapon or the cape, usually sells for between $3,000 and $3,500. The actual weapon by itself, just the blaster, I've seen it sell for $2,500. This one was complete with the cape, with the blaster, and it graded AFA 85 plus. I think that's actually the highest graded I've ever seen, and it probably is the highest graded on the population report, is my guess. So there it is, 85 plus. These came out in 1988, made by a company called SB Products. They were called Uzay bootlegs, and they were very high quality bootlegs made in Turkey. This one had an archival case, and it was a stunner at auction. And it was at $2,700 with 3 seconds left in the auction. The final sales price in the last 3 seconds, it went from $2,700 to a final sales price of $8,100. $8,100, $8,100. And I have it on good authority. I do not know this for a fact, but I have it on good authority that the seller originally paid $15,000 for it. So I don't know if that's a fact. I'm just going on rumors and what I've heard from some folks in the collecting community. So big loss on that, given that it did resell at an auction. He bought it for $15,000, sold it for $8,100. And I think it's worth every penny of that, quite honestly, because a mint on card example, and even in low grade, a mint on card example will set you back 5 figures, over $10,000. So congratulations, whoever picked it up. It was not anybody I know who bought it, but that was an absolute gem, and it really jumped in the last 3 seconds of the auction. It went from $2,700 to $8,100 in the last 3 seconds. So absolutely insane. We probably will never see something like this ever get listed on eBay again, unless maybe the buyer doesn't pay. But an absolute gem, and probably the most desirable vintage Star Wars bootleg that exists is this one, the Blue Stars Uzay Turkish bootleg for the Hoth Stormtrooper. So that's all I really had for this video. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll be back soon.